gonna open up Twitter. All right, everyone, welcome to Flyover Footy. It's going to be a classy joint tonight. If you're not looking at the stream, I'm holding up a classy glass of red wine to go with this classy attempt at a mustache here. Since Jake's not here, I got to try to keep up with that. Hope everyone's having a good night. We have two special hosts, special and dear to me, Matt Baker and Santiago Beltran. Matt, how's it going, bud?
Pretty good. Everything's going fairly well today. I'm not purposefully rocking a stash. It's just the 5 o'clock shadow. Haven't shaved in days.
Looks good on you, I think.
Hey, you guys are growing the stats in honor of Roman Berkey, right?
That's right.
That's really what it is. Yeah.
I've been working on the muscles in honor of Roman Berkey, and that's not happening. But
that's a losing battle from the beginning.
Santiago, how are you doing, man?
Oh, great. It's been a good week so far, and we got a treat today, Phil. We went to the media availability for City 2, and there you go. There was Roman Berkey available for the media, so that was good.
Yeah, it was a surprise. They did not say he was going to speak to us, but he was the second person to come up. It was great. A nice surprise. So yeah, it's, I talked to a USL friend of mine, Evan Villela from the USL show today. He's like, how was your day? I was like, well, I just talked to John Hackworth. I just talked to Josh Yarrow, and I talked to Roman Berkey. So that's a pretty damn good day. So
tough to beat that.
Yeah, right. Especially if it's a USL guy who really loves and appreciates all those people as well. Great. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today, and so we need to try to dig in immediately. We got a couple long ones and then a bunch of quick ones in the middle, and then we'll see what we can fit in at the end. I think we need to start with, we'll go chronologically here in a way. Minnesota United 2 versus us. It was a victory this time, but it was a comeback victory, right? Matt, you want to get us started on this one?
Yeah, not really a comeback. It was almost one of those that we held on to it. So we started off.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, started off fairly strong. Josh Doling led off the scoring in what was it, the 21st minute, I think, pretty early. Right-footed shot from the center of the box. I mean, it was one of those where Ezra Armstrong played him through, and Doling in typical Doling fashion. Ezra, I think, in that game played really, really well on the left side. So I was excited to see him get into the scoring action because he seems like he's always there in all of the games that he's playing in that left mid. But now he actually got an assist, and that was exciting to see. Second half, Sergio Rivas. I mean, that left-footed shot from the left side of the box, it just kind of was a beautifully played ball by Akil Watts through to him, and just tricky beat the keeper. And that was enough to do it. As a fan watching, that was kind of enough for the stream because it cut out on us for most of the second half, I think. Azeel Jackson, who we were watching for from our forecast show, in the last time we recorded, he had the assist on the Minnesota United goal, which I don't think we were able to see that, but I went back and looked at the highlight. That was, I mean, we got the job done. We went in and we did what we needed to do. It was a little bit more of a possession match for us. We had over 50% possession, 51.2 to 48.8 for them. And they got off a lot of shots on us. So we didn't stifle them in their attack as much as we had previous teams. It was actually 13-10 shots with even 3-on-3 shots on goal, which is not a typical City 2 matchup. I think that's about as much, or if not more, than we could ask for, given the previous performance where they shut us out 4-0, I believe, and we were on their turf. So all things considered, very impressive going into the bye week.
Yeah, it's something that seems to work on us every week. I believe we've touched on this before, but that big switch to a talented winger seems to get us pretty well. And again, Azeel Jackson looked incredible in this game. He continues to look good in this league and against us, unfortunately. So, we saw a lot of that, but we saw just a lot of quality Minnesota poking through and getting some shots off. They seem to be one of the better teams against our style for some reason. Santiago, any other things that you noticed in this game?
No, obviously, great bounce back victory for CDSC2. Um, but yeah, no, comparing this game to the game a couple of months ago where Minnesota won 4-0, it was really a different game from the beginning. Just thinking about the previous game, like Minnesota was pushing from the beginning and had
Mm.
a few chances to score. But on this game, St. Louis controlled Minnesota pretty well. And yeah, there were some shots on goal, but not as many. Not as many as what we saw when Minnesota won 4-0, and City 2 was able to control the game. And I went back and looked at the highlights today, and the Minnesota goal wasn't there. Or I
Mm.
don't know if I missed it.
So the feed not only cut out for us, but it cut out for just the universe.
MLS
Yeah,
skill.
yeah. So obviously, yeah, we had quite a few issues with the feed. But yeah, I was like, oh, let me look at the highlights since this game was like a
Mm.
week and a half ago, and I had even forgotten that Snyder missed that PK.
Yep.
And just thinking
True.
about that again, the team bounced back from that and scored like 10 minutes later. I was looking at the highlight for that goal. Obviously, great assist from Armstrong. But looking at how that play began, like it was a bold St. Louis recover, and I believe it was Palazzolo that passed it
Mm.
to Armstrong, and Armstrong right away. You could see Dolin like signaling and say, "Hey, I'm here, uh, I'm open," and right away he he put that pass in the right place, and Dolin like he went for it right away, and it was a great goal.
How
But
often do you go ahead?
go ahead.
Well, how often do you see a striker or an attacker call for the ball constantly like that and just get ignored, either because someone doesn't have the talent to get it to them, or just like they don't quite trust them to put away a difficult finish, But I've seen over and over, if Doling's calling for it, they're often looking for him and want to get it to him. I don't know if that's not common. I feel like it's not in my experience, but I watch a lot of USL games, so maybe that's it. I cut you off though, Matt. What were you going to say?
Well,
Yeah,
on
no,
that
but
front, I think that's just part of the style that we run, where the ball
mhm,
seems to play through our fullbacks that play as wingbacks, but also our side midfielders, and they're kind of our de facto number 10s, where the ball's played through Celio on the right side in the last few games and through Ezra on the left side, and they're constantly looking up top over the middle, and Doling, no matter if he's deep or if he's waiting for the ball to then drop it off to somebody. I think I don't want to call it a false nine, but they almost play the ball through to Doling as if it's not necessarily going to be the finisher. Like he's a facilitator just as much as he's a finisher because of how deep he often gets once he receives the ball. And I think that's really unique, that allows our left and right midfielders to really be engaged in different ways than we might otherwise be used to seeing. But when I was looking at the at some notes and thinking back on the game, one thing that I was reminded about are our formation. So we always like to analyze,
Mhm.
how we're lining up and what kind of formations, and often it is a version of a 4-2-3-1. I like they can say we're not really concerned about formations, but that's what it is. We have our fullbacks. Usually it's Kwame or Ezra on the left side, DeRosa on the right, Hebert and Yarrow in the as our center backs, with either Max, AJ, or Akil as those holding mids. And then we have our attackers. And in this game, you thought, because the announcer said we were in a 4-2-3-1, but I don't care how many times he said it, we were clearly in a 3 center back role where Ezra and DeRosa were wing backs who were just getting so high up the field. And we knew it was going to be interesting having Akil start with AJ and Max. So that was an interesting starting lineup. And Akil ended up in that center back role. So he was on, I think, the right side center back. And so for the longest time, I think, until the first substitution, that was our form. And then we eventually shifted once Akil moved over at halftime, I think. Moments later after that, we shifted into a 4-3-3 once Kwame came on for Ezra. And so Kwame, our usual left back, slotted in there and stayed a little further back. And then as soon as we had that Rivas for AJ sub, where again we're shifting out those defensive mids, playing with our back line, we moved into that 4-2-3-1 with Max and Akil in those holding mid positions, and Rivas being that center attacking mid with, I believe it was Juan and Celio. Celio's shifting out left, Juan out right, giving us that more tradition look that we're used to. So the takeaway is that City 2 is playing with some of their formations with some of their players, so that we're seeing Akil, Max, and AJ line up where we're not used to seeing all three of them on the field at the same time much. Shows to the flexibility of the players on the roster, but also I think the flexibility of the system that we have, that it works with both the 3 center back, wing back formations, as well as what we're used to seeing, which is our fullbacks just playing so high up.
Yeah, to me, it speaks to Hackworth and kind of the freedom that he was given as well by Lutz, because a lot of this screams John Hackworth. If you look at how Louisville played in the recent past, and he's done all this stuff, and I love how he's adapting it to whatever players are on the field. It seems like, I think you kind of hinted at that. I agree with that, Matt. Yeah. And I also wanted to call myself out because I did not figure this out correctly. You nailed it from the beginning, and I doubted you for a minute, and then I was like, oh gosh, he's totally right. So I wanted to, I put that on Twitter. I didn't put the apology on Twitter, so I want to make sure I said it now, that sorry, I doubted you on that one, Matt. But yeah, it was really cool. And today we talked to the 3 guys, we mentioned that earlier, but I mentioned to Hack, I asked him about how Akil, obviously he's playing a lot of positions, and he got that assist once they moved to that 4-2-3-1 to Rivas, and just a beautiful assist. And I also kind of thought about that with how Minnesota plays. It seems like they had no interest in possessing the ball, Matt. I think, if you mentioned that it was 51% possession on our side. Yeah. And I think Akil is a good player to have. He's kind of a problem solver in his brain, where he's looking for something to work and looking for players in behind, like Rivas. That wasn't an easy pass, but it was such a classic Akil Watts pass this season for us. So, just some things I noticed in that Hack, mentioned how he played 3 positions in that game, I believe is what he said. So, man, so cool that we got that if we are going to shift formations like that.
It was almost like it was a Where's Waldo with Akil Watts. Yeah. That right center back shifting over to left back, shifting up to holding mid 6. You can call him an 8 depending on. But it was fun to watch, and he's been one of those guys this entire year where no matter where, I think he's best suited for that holding mid position, but which I didn't expect coming into the season based on how he had played before. A pleasant surprise. But I think that's why he's one of the most exciting players to watch, because of his versatility and his ability to get up the field when you don't necessarily think he needs to.
Yeah, and that first half, when he played center back, he did well. He played well, and it's funny when Phil asked John Hackworth today, he was like, "Oh yeah, Akil is everywhere." So that was good to see that he can perform in different positions. That's a great thing to see from him.
Absolutely.
The versatility is going to serve him well when we have conversations about who's going to move up as well.
For sure.
Especially, I imagine they're going to keep him down on the 2 roster at the beginning of the season, but I know for a fact we'll see him filling in some roles. I was thinking exactly that today, Matt. Cool. Let's talk about North Texas. This is one I think we've all been looking forward to quite a bit. The one little cool thing that Santiago asked about, someone mentioned the rules. I can't remember, but that if someone gets a red card with North Texas in this game, this is the only team that it could come back and pay off later, because we do see them again later. So that's something to watch out in this game. That's all I got though for this one, Matt. I think you dug deep on North Texas. I'd love to hear what you found.
I'm just going to say this one time: be careful, Ezra Armstrong. He's the guy who's tops on our team in yellow cards.
Could hurt us too.
Yeah. So as long as I don't want to lose him for that game, just take it easy on some of these challenges. We're catching North Texas at a really interesting time. So aside from the elephant in the room that we'll get to in just a minute, we thought we would be playing them, the top 2 teams in the West, strongest teams that have been here all season going at it. This would be the matchup we look to determine that winner in the West that would really separate themselves. And while we've had, the unexpected loss to the Rapids 2, we had the win against Minnesota, and a bye week. The North Texas has been kind of on a skid. So their last two, dating back to the beginning of July, are a 4-2 loss to SKC2, a 3-1 loss to the Quakes 2, and a tie and loss in PKs against Dynamo Dos. Now, those teams aren't necessarily anyone to look down on. The worst is Sporting KC2 in 8th position in the table. But, I think that kind of shows we're catching them at the best possible time we could all season. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with injuries either. They're still having their top stars play in these games, and they have a lot of quality forwards. They have a lot of depth because FC Dallas has fantastic academy, fantastic system. And so they're able to rotate a little bit while still keeping a lot of their main goal-scoring threats engaged in the game. And they were all active in these matches where they lost. So it's kind of interesting that they're in such bad form when they're coming to St. Louis. And I think it's the perfect opportunity for us. The other thing that I had is the kind of I came up with 3 keys to this game. And so then we could talk about probably the thing that we're most excited to talk about. This is an interesting team that we're playing because they statistically match up so different than us. We are both goal scoring threatening teams. So they're 4th in the league in goals scored. We're 5th, but getting there is quite the different story. So the first key to the game, I think, for us is, can we bottle their stars? And so they have 3 stars, aside from the 2 St. Louis University players who we'll mention. But their 3 stars that I had are Bernard Camungo. He's a forward, number 7, with 9 goals scored this season. I think it puts him 4th in the league. 3 assists, and he's started just about every single one of their games. He has 42 shots and 24 shots on goal this season. So he is the guy who they play the ball through to get their goals. Jose Mulatto, number 9 forward, has 6 goals, 2 assists, and he's played a majority of their game, also with a lot of shots, 30 shots, 15 on target. And then Hope Aveyevu, I'm going to butcher that name, Aveyevu, number 10, listed as a forward, but he seems like he plays as the number 10 in the highlights I saw. 3 goals, but he leads the team in assists with 6. 33 shots on goal, 12 on target. If we can stifle those guys, and if we can prevent the passes from reaching them, if we can prevent them from creating those 3 alone, I think we're going to have a pretty good shot, because it is a massive drop-off in statistics from their goal-scoring threats, those guys, to everyone else, and especially Aveyevu, number 10. If we can prevent him from really creating the chances, we're going to be in good shape. The other one is, what's going to win out, our press or their passing? So this is where really the juxtaposition is on the stats, is in passing. So if you look at passing percentage for total passes versus accurate passes, North Texas is 2nd in the league. 83.8% of their passes are successful. St. Louis City 2 is last in the league in passing percentage with 71% passing. And the volume is where it's kind of insane. So they have 2,000 more total passes than us throughout the season.
Wow.
Now, we've played 15, 16 games, and they have over 2,300 more accurate passes than us. These numbers are insane as to how much they control the ball and pass the ball compared to us. And we know that's not necessarily our style of play, to work out from the back, to pass the ball through our midfield. That's not really our style. So it's not surprising what our numbers are. It's that theirs are so much drastically higher and successful in their passes. So what that really means to me is, will our press, which is designed to disrupt a passing focused offense, will it do its job? Will we disrupt them enough to prevent that from getting to their goal scorers? And the key area in the game to that, I think, is going to be in their backfield. So they're 2nd in the league in accurate back zone passes, meaning the accurate passes, obviously in the back half of their field. They have over 3,800 accurate back zone passes. We only have 1,700. So that's another massive difference in where the ball is played and how the ball is played. So if we can keep them in their backfield, if we can disrupt them back there before it even reaches their number 10 and their attacking threats, that's where we are going to have the biggest opportunity in this game. And then the third key to the game is, what will the Berkey effect be? So you guys hit on it earlier. We've heard that Berkey is available and expecting to feature in this game. So I'll let you guys talk about the paperwork and everything. But the reason that is such a big deal, not just because of how good he is and his reputation. And, I hate to, I don't mean to disparage or anything. It's just pure stats on this one, but we are one of the worst goal defending teams in the league. So our save percentage is fourth from last. City 2's is. We only save 58.5% of our shots. We've allowed the fewest number of shots attempted, but yet our save percentage is fourth from last. So while we don't historically allow many shots because of our style of play, the shots that we do allow are getting through. And it's a reflection not only of our goalkeeping, but it's a reflection of our defense as well, because we've seen our defenders be beaten. And some of those goals are just not fair to place on the keeper. But the level of the keeper that we expect to have, what kind of a difference can that make to maybe mitigate some of those defensive mistakes, or in some of those other areas where maybe it's a long cross or the ball's played in deep, which we are very weak against long crosses, especially from the side. How can this goalkeeper perform? How can Berkey help us in that regard? And what kind of a difference can it make in the shots that do get through to our keeper?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that and be really strong, because you did say this, Matt, but if someone breaks through to the goalkeeper, typically it's going to be one-on-one or worse, right? Yep. So like we've already pushed a million guys up front. The press has failed probably more than twice already, at least more than once, for them to get to this point. So all our guys are upfield. Goalkeeper's got one or two people to deal with. He's less likely to save it than if there's like a center back or a fullback there trying to help him out. So that's happening to us more often than them. But yes, if we have a world-class goalkeeper, maybe we can just edge that save percentage up just a little bit more, right?
Which honestly is why one of the many reasons I'm so excited to see Berkey, is because I want to see how he performs when that defense does fail, when the ball gets past them, when our press is countered, and when that one-on-one situation is there, or if somebody slides in on the backside, and we've been beaten many times on the backside cross before. So what is it going to look like when we have this entirely different level of keeper, who maybe they're used to seeing some of those different things that McGrain or Krieg may not be used to, and they've done an admirable job. Don't get me wrong, they've done a fantastic job, and they've gotten us to top of the table, top of the league. So it's not anything like that. It's just it's an entirely different perspective. It's a different class of keeper, and so I'm very, very excited to see how he plays into what our defensive strategy often ends up being.
It's going to be a good one. I'm really excited. I think I can make this one. And so I'm really excited to get out there.
Finally, Phil is going to make it.
I haven't been to a regular season game. I'm either out of town or I'm in this cover band where I have shows every freaking weekend. It's been killing me.
If you're going to make one, it sounds like this is the one to make.
I hope so.
This is the one.
That's what I've been thinking.
I'm sad I'm going to miss it.
Hopefully there's a stream available for you to tune in on.
A good one.
I'm sure there will be one. The question is, am I going to be able to see the whole game?
Right.
So we'll
but
see.
No, on Berkey, guys, what did you guys hear today? Anything from Friday? I know when you guys talked, it was there was a question mark of whether he'd feature, and then that was very quickly clarified by Tom Timmerman today.
Yeah, there was a bit of a timeline in our experience today, right, Santiago?
Yeah. So Coach Hagwar said, we hope that he will be available, and not only available, but he will be in the game.
He'll be featured,
and then,
right?
Yeah, will be featured in the game. And then when we talked to him, he was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to play on Friday. And after he said that, I was thinking, I was like, I wonder what's going on. Maybe he has a slight injury, or maybe his paperwork, but kind of didn't ask him about it. But I kept thinking, oh, it's probably the paperwork, the transfer, something like that. And then Tom Timmerman came through and said the paperwork had come through. So yeah, he'll be he'll be there on Friday. It'll be interesting. Phil and I were talking like, is he gonna start or is he gonna come like in the middle of the game, maybe second half? It'll be interesting to see how the team handles that. But I from what he said, he's ready. He has been practicing for more than 2 weeks, and he said he's now used to the heat, the St.
Yeah.
Louis heat.
And the
Uh,
humidity.
yeah. He also said he hates losing. That's something that
More than once he said this.
that stuck out to me. He said it multiple times. So it looks like he's a very competitive guy. So he's gonna bring the best version of Roman Berkey on Friday, and hopefully City 2 can beat Dallas. And yeah, as Matt said, like they are not in good form, but this is one of the games that early in the season when they were dominating the league, we said, "Oh, this is going to be a really good game." And even though they are not doing so well lately, I think it's still going to be a good game between two of the teams that uh, maybe the winner of this game could be the team that ends up at the top of the conference. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean the quality's there, right? And what more could you ask for? Yes, they're two teams, but they're both quality sides playing a totally different style of soccer. So like, yeah, I'm so excited to see just like how this clash kind of ends up and what it looks like even as we're going through it. No matter the ending, though, of course I'm biased that I want to get out of there with a win. But yeah, the only thing I'll say about Berkey is that yeah, like multiple times he said, I'm really competitive. I want to win. In the last one he said was, even in training, I really want to win. So if anyone's worried about Berkey like phoning it in for a two side, I don't see that happening. You know, like if he's going all out for free kicks during training and gets pissed if his side loses, I think he's going to be okay in a two side game. So I'm looking forward to that. Any more
Well,
thoughts,
what are your
Matt, before
guys?
we go?
What are your guys' thoughts on what featured means? Because I read that and my first thought is he's going to start. But what do you think we would honestly start McGrain or Creek and then make a keeper sub? Because also keeping in mind how often we use all of our subs and how it's going to be 100 degrees at game time, they're saying. And so the last time we played in this heat, we used all of our available subs and with a little bit of time to spare too. So our style of play inherently needs to keep fresh legs. In the heat, it's even more important. So do you really think that they're going, I don't want to call it wasting, but do you really think they're going to spend a sub on a keeper or start him and ride him through?
Yeah, maybe start him and see how it goes. Maybe if he's tired or the game, depending on how the game is going, maybe second half McGrain or Creek will come. But yeah, just thinking about the temperature and CD2 needing all those subs, maybe he will just start. It doesn't make sense to waste one substitution on a goalkeeper. But yeah, right away after the interview, I told Phil, oh, he's gonna start. I said no. He said feature, so it made me think about it. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's going to start.
So he chose his words very carefully as to not give the entire thing away.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Maybe his goal was to make us talk about it for 10 minutes. Maybe that was
Which I'm totally willing to do. Totally willing to talk about it.
And I usually don't give any kind of hot takes, but I really do feel like with this heat, with what we normally sub and the fact that subs help us, I think even more than some other teams with the amount of energy we expend in a game, I'd really hate to see a goalkeeper sub involved in that. I really would. I don't usually say something that strong, but if we got to get Berkey in there one way or another, it is what it is, I guess.
Entirely agree with you. And that's where I'm coming from too. And if we're taking Berkey is going to feature as the fact, right? That's the thing that we start with. Then my inkling is he's going to start and we're going to need those subs. But there's a flip side too, do they feel confident that, to Santi's point, that Berkey is fit enough for the heat to go the full 90, which nothing against his fitness. It's purely the heat and humidity. Has he been acclimated enough to it over the past few weeks to them feel comfortable? Like, we think he can go and he thinks he can go. So we're going to go with it.
Listen, Everton lost to Minnesota United today, or it was 3-0 last I looked. I don't know if it ended that way. I was surprised how good Charlotte looked against Chelsea. And maybe this is just guys phoning it in preseason in the United States for a good time. But I think the Heat has something to say in that regard.
Well, if we're talking about Euro teams, I'm going to plug Arsenal beating Orlando City right now 3-1 in stoppage time. So,
Yeah.
and I'm also going to get lots of hate for plugging Arsenal.
Oh, for sure, for sure. What very quick, what do you guys think about these friendlies in the middle of the season against European teams? I'm not a fan of them.
Why? Say more.
Well, because it's in the middle of the season. These teams have games on Saturday, and yeah, it's preseason for the European teams. A lot of times they don't bring like their best guys, or don't even put them in the game, and it's just a risk in the middle of the season, especially if you have a game on Saturday. Like, what if your best player gets injured in that game? Like, how do you justify that? Like, yeah, I had a friendly to make some money, sell some tickets, uh, get more fans, but what if what if one of your top players gets injured? I don't know. It's just that for me, it's not competitive. Just thinking about
Yeah.
yesterday that Inter Miami lost 6-0. That was like an embarrassment.
I
And
think
yeah,
I think Phil Neville even called that, the manager of Inter Miami. I think he even called that the most important game in Inter Miami's history, which
he
was
did.
which was not only that, to
Oops.
exactly your point, like that was embarrassing to Major League Soccer for him to have said that.
Yeah.
But I if from a neutral perspective, I'm fine with it. They can wear themselves out all I want. We're seeing a U.S. team play Premier League teams, and La Liga teams. I'm fine with it. But once it becomes our team next year, and if we get that matchup, I'll be a little more guarded probably, because I don't want to see our players have a midweek friendly match where we're definitely going to play our stars, because that's what MLS wants us to do.
Right.
And they could get injured. They could be tired. They're probably not going to perform as well that upcoming week. It's going to affect the on-field performance for all of these teams. We know it is, just like CCL impacted all of those teams. And it's why Seattle got off to a bad start, why the Revs got off to a bad start. So from a competitive on-the-field perspective, probably not going to be a big fan of St. Louis City doing it, but I'll still be excited about seeing them play this level of competition.
Yeah, I didn't even think about St. Louis doing it in the next season or the next season after that. But to be honest with you, I'm going to be a little grossed out at the kind of people coming out to pack our stadium to watch Chelsea or Arsenal or whatever the F we got to sit through these European fanboys. It's going to bother me for sure.
Yeah. I really think we're going to end up trying to get ourselves in that situation, only because Charlotte did this year. They're brand new. And it just seems like one of those things that Major League Soccer is going to try to push on us, if nothing else. Like, I could definitely see Lutz and Bradley and everybody saying, no, we don't want to put our players through this, especially in the St. Louis Heat on a friendly midweek match. But I can definitely see MLS trying to force it for the optics of the brand new stadium, brand new team, Lutz himself to be involved in this.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot that could be marketed well for MLS, but to the detriment probably of the on-field performance of a city.
Part of me wants like a Dusseldorf revenge game for Lutz, where he really is motivated to take him out. But
they're going to bring Dortmund. You know, they're going to bring Dortmund over.
It would make a lot of sense to be Dortmund. But at least it's not like Liverpool. You know, we're not going to have a bunch of guys showing up doing chants in English accents and things like that.
Please, no.
Which would happen, right? Wouldn't it definitely happen if we played Liverpool? Okay, all right.
I'll be fine with Liverpool just to see Luis Diaz, Colombian.
That
one I
approve. See Luis too. Love it. Okay, Matt, is Pedro here or is Pedro not here? We got a question earlier about this as well. So,
Pedro was supposed to be here, from what I hear. There were I don't know if visa issues are the right thing. There were paperwork related issues that prevented him from arriving at a similar time that Klaus came. It is unknown if he's going to be in attendance on Friday. So he might be. If you're at the game, be on the lookout.
Interesting. Yeah, go on Transfermarkt and go look up a bunch of pictures of him.
See if we can find those flight trackers that Twitter has and that are all over the place from I don't even know what route you would take, but
Yeah.
somebody, I'm sure.
I was looking for him today, but there are actually plenty of St. Louis players with blonde hair. So I was like, I should have looked at pictures. I can't pick them out.
The academy was there. Some of the academy guys were there.
Yeah.
They were by themselves on a separate part of the field, but it was interesting that they were there. Previously, Coach Hackworth said that they plan to integrate some of those guys at some point once they get enough rest from the season. So maybe that's the beginning of that.
That would be nice.
Isak Jensen signing is official now, which is really exciting. I don't know if you guys saw, but I looked him up. He's a big dude. He's like 6'2", 200 pounds. And even like 6'2" soccer players are typically not 200 pounds, but here we are. This is a big winger. It's not a normal thing.
And he's only 18. And
right.
So that size of a player out on the left wing,
I wore my
18
Danish
years old.
shirt for him. It's a different team. But it's Danish.
There you go.
Still counts. Yeah. Well, he didn't really play much for their first team. Sonderjysk.
Yes, you did attempt it. Ooh. I said something like Sonderjyska.
I didn't even look it up beforehand. I'm just like looking at the word, and I should have done that.
I'm glad I didn't attempt it.
Haji Wright's former club. He just got sold to IntelliSport today, I believe, or yesterday.
I'm gonna make Sonderjysk my final answer on that one.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think it sounds better than what I started with. But no,
is it Jensen or Jensen? I haven't seen a pronunciation yet.
It's Jensen according to the club.
Ooh, very nice.
And I think it's Isak, from what the announcers on some random site I could find were saying.
That would make sense as well.
Not Isaac, but Isak Jensen.
Isak, okay.
But yeah, he'll be 19, I believe. His birthday's in December, and he signed through 2026 with an option for 2027, and he is an international slot. And there's not a whole
seven.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. 7.
Yeah. So our roster currently. Yeah, our roster currently from the back looks like right now we've got Berkey, Pedro on the left. Well, they're listing him as a wingback. I think that's very important to note. Pedro is listed as our wingback. Joachim Nilsson as the center back. Our wingers are Ostrak and Jensen. So Ostrak's being billed as a winger, which is interesting. And then Edward Leuven is a central mid with Klaus up front.
Sounds right.
So they haven't fully billed Yarrow for when they're listing out the 23 roster, but that's not because he isn't signed anymore. It's just they're letting him focus on City 2 without kind of putting the cart ahead of the horse on this one. So expect to have him listed later on, but nothing. Don't read anything into not seeing Yarrow's name on the roster from these announcements.
Quick plug, make sure that presser is going to be released tomorrow, I think, by the club on YouTube and on Twitter, I'm sure. Watch Josh Yarrow's comments on the new designated players coming in, or the new European players coming in. Dude, he's got a stone cold, ice cold stare to him, and he really means business. And I really enjoyed his comments on that one. So look for that.
I enjoyed that too.
Carson Gibbs to SLU. This isn't terribly surprising, but the way I asked it today to Hackworth, and it was kind of ignored, which is fine. It must not have been a good question. But the fact that Carson Gibbs, often, if you lose a player from a 2-team or a semi-pro team to or an academy, even more so to a college, often that is something disappointing. You feel like they're gone forever, or you're going to have to go through the draft. In this case, him going to SLU, I feel like we could still get him back at any moment, and even through the draft if we had to, or if we're able to get some kind of a homegrown stamp on him. I know that's something maybe, Matt, that you were going to comment on today about him and other players.
Well, Carson Gibbs is an interesting scenario because he wasn't an academy player for City. He joined City straight to City 2, along with his brother and Jack Wagner. So they were Gallagher kids, and Gibbs played for his high school team. I want to say Fort Zumwalt, but I don't have that in front of me.
Yes, South. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the interesting thing to that is they're not really losing an academy player. I look back at Gibbs' progression and more see City 2 as the best opportunity that he had for himself locally to prepare himself for college. So whereas I'm sure there is a desire to play in MLS and continue to develop, obviously, because he's going to SLU to play soccer. But I think this probably was part of his plan all along to leverage City 2 to prepare himself while City 2 gets a player of the caliber of Carson Gibbs, who they didn't have in their academy and could just pull him in on an amateur contract. So I think it was like a mutually beneficial agreement that they probably knew was heading this way for a while.
Yeah, I agree. And Phil, when you asked Hakwar about it, he said, yeah, he has been great this season, but he still needs to grow and mature on his game, and going to SLU is a great opportunity for him. And he also mentioned, like, whenever we can, obviously following NCAA rules, we'll see if we can get him. So that made me think, like, can they get him for the
UPSL.
the UPSL team?
I was thinking the exact same thing of how is he going to, if he comes back to City and the program before any kind of MLS engagement, that seems to be his option, because that specifically was said to allow players to retain their NCAA eligibility. Totally with you on that.
Yeah, so I think that will be an option for him, and he will continue developing, and he will be under Kevin Kalish. Coach Hakwar spoke highly of Coach Kalish. They know each other and have a relationship that goes way back. So yeah, I think he will be in great hands.
Every once in a while, I have a moment where I am just eternally thankful that that you guys were willing to come be on this podcast. This was one of them. You guys really killed that answer, and I really enjoyed just listening to you. There's a LuFuse partnership. We, as usual, probably mostly in our DMs, we figured out that it was going to be a LuFuse sign, and then we went outrageously crazy with what it could be, which was kind of fun. So maybe we can share what happened, and also maybe some of those outrageous thoughts. Yeah. Oh,
hey,
look at you, Matt. Look at
Matt,
you.
You're running out of room for the scarves. What are you gonna do?
I've got to buy a new house to fit them all, or a new garage or something.
That's the answer.
I took my 2-year-old who was home with me that day up to High Point, and it became her scarf. So this one's hers. I'm starting to get the kids their own scarves now.
That's awesome.
Nice. Spread it to all the rooms for sure.
Right. But no, to your point though, we were kind of positing, okay, LuFuse obviously has a massive impact in soccer. So is it automotive? Is it automotive and athletic? How deep is this relationship going to go? Even in the press conference and some of the statements, LuFuse execs were referencing their longstanding commitment to soccer and their own youth program that they have. And we know that Fuse has a presence in MLS Next with their own academy. I don't know how high up it goes, but I know they have 13s and 14s in there. So to me, there still exists that possibility that there could be some sort of a indirect pipeline that happens. But this particular announcement had nothing to do overtly with LuFuse Athletic. Leave
it open.
Yeah. I have to caveat that with overtly. It was exciting though, because it had a fan experience component to it. So not on the field, but we know that the East Plaza has now been named the LuFuse Plaza. Yep. So that's exciting that that's taking shape a little bit more, and we're having a little bit more clarity. And they had more renderings in there that had what it's going to look like with the trees, with the gates. The multiple renderings of me, apparently.
So great.
What's up with that?
It's the one, I don't know, it's that one picture they have. And I saw they did it for other people too. I was the only one who got heat, but it was funny seeing multiple people in multiple spots in those specific poses. I like how I'm looking like I'm talking to like a short invisible friend right behind Elvir.
Right.
It's like I don't know what the idea is there, but
I think they wanted you to be seen. It was like your pink hat was more highlighter pink than anyone else's.
It is a bright hat. I will give it that. But no, they had the So I think there were three things. There was the official automotive partner. There was the East Plaza is now Lou Fuse Plaza, and they have their name on the southeast gate. So you'll see the Lou Fuse Automotive gate.
If you guys aren't sick of hearing it, my favorite part is the plaza. It's my favorite part of the stadium when I went on the tour, and I really am excited. Like, not only we're gonna get, watch parties, but there's gonna be a massive opportunity to, basically what I saw on Twitter was get fat watching soccer with beer and food, and
well, there were
they
three
need
things,
some treadmills or something. Well,
there were three things that stuck out to me about the plaza that were either alluded to or known but not highlighted. One of them is the stage that they're appearing to have on the East Plaza now. So there's some kind of a stage, and I'm sure Mastermind's going to have carte blanche to do what he wants there. The other is the vendors and the concessions on the east side of the stadium seem to now officially have a inside-outside presence, and so there are going to be, I think, at least 3, 4, or 5 of the vendors who will be able to flip and be outside to that East Plaza, probably on non-game days, maybe on game days too, but especially when they have those watch parties on Saturday and Sunday mornings and other events. They're going to be able to have concessions directly from the stadium at the plaza. And then the third thing is there will be apparently some electrical connections kind of established or constructed on 20th Street, so that to me, from the renderings, that's where our food truck line is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure they have flexibility into what they can do with it, because those electrical outlets that will be permanently there will probably allow a lot of different things besides food trucks. But I think that's going to be the most consistent thing we see on game days, which I've seen from other stadiums, and the Earthquakes have a pretty nice food truck garden. If we do something similar to that, I think it's going to add a different look than just the stadium vendor and what's up top, but it'll extend it out, all of the activities and activations to 20th Street over to where Aloe Plaza is. So that's pretty cool.
Very much so. I think it was like, I like to follow Dennis, is it Beganovich? He's like a big St. Louis City pundit. We'll just call him that.
City of St. Louis pundit.
City of St. Louis. Like, he is so grouchy and he's so angry about St. Louis all the time, but he loves it so much, which is very passionate. Classic St. Louis City citizen, in my opinion. But so I follow him for that. He made a good point. There's not much shade, but that can be fixed. I'm not too worried about that. But the other thing to mention is that on that northeast corner of the stadium, another really cool thing, whether you've done the tour or not, you may remember the bar with the garage doors that just lift up. And so we'll be able to access that from the plaza as well. I thought that was a really nice plan there. We went way too long on this. I'm so sorry. I contributed to that. Let's move on to... Actually, we're wrapping it up a little bit. I wanted to talk about the fact that we're going to be facing North Texas, and SLU players Chase Neese and Isaiah Parker will almost definitely be on the roster. And so that's exciting. Isaiah Parker has been a really effective player for them. I believe he's been playing left back, but he does have 1 goal and 4 assists on the season. Chase Neese has played almost every game except for, looks like 1, 2, 3 on the bench, 2 not in the squad for some reason. But he's been a pretty steady center back for them. I don't think he's had any trouble per se. I like to think about him and Kip Keller, in that Kip Keller has been riding the bench for Austin except for about 3 or 4 appearances. And then we got Chase Neese playing almost every game in North Texas. What would you prefer? That's a tough choice, right? I imagine Kip Keller is probably getting the better of the training in this case, but I don't know. What do you guys think, actually? Might as well ask you guys.
I think it's interesting that he's not getting that much playing time. It seems he's only started like 7 games, like you said. He's not a Generation Adidas player, Chase. So I'm not expecting him to be like FC Dallas ready. I do like that they're involving him in whatever rotation they're doing, but I'm excited to see Isaiah Parker hopefully Friday. I don't know if Chase is going to get a start or not, but Parker seems like he is a part of their starting 11 pretty routinely. And as a Generation Adidas player from this last year's class, SLU alumni, I think, it would have been cool to have him play while we were at SLU. That would have been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But this is the next best thing. And I hope that, I hope he gets a nice ovation. He's number 15 on the defense if anybody sees him out there. So welcome him home. It's nice to see St. Louis University and just local St. Louis players return here, even if they're on other teams. I'm sure they love to be back home as well.
He wasn't a left back at SLU, right?
He was both. I think mostly he was a forward, but I know he spent some time at left back.
Okay.
But I will also say I didn't catch that before. Chase Neese, just to clarify a little more, he was on the bench twice and not in the squad in the middle of the season so far. And then he's only gotten 45 minutes or less in every game since. And he wasn't in the squad against Houston last week. So you're right. He's kind of fallen off. So I hope we see him. Maybe they'll give him a shot since he's coming back to his hometown. Of course, we're rooting for him.
If you're going to rotate players, I mean, find a good excuse to get them in the roster where they're going to perform. If he plays, obviously you'd think he would have whether it's a chip on his shoulder or just want to perform better, being in front of his family probably and local friends. That's the kind of thing in this league. Like, why wouldn't you give this kind of guy an opportunity?
Yeah.
In this particular game.
Completely agree. Two team, you have plenty of freedom for that. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. This was the big one. Oh, go ahead.
We didn't answer your question about what do you
sorry.
What would you prefer? I think I will go with riding the bench on MLS and training every day with those guys. And it's interesting because Kippy at the beginning of the season, he started a few games and he got subbed like a mid-game and then like 4 or 5 games into it, he was on the bench but not getting any minutes. I think 2-3 weeks ago, somebody got injured and he came in. And then the next game, he got the start and he got a red card.
Oh
so
my gosh.
that's kind of unfortunate for him. But yeah, I think I would prefer that situation and be ready for whenever they need me.
A little inside scoop here. I don't think I wasn't supposed to share this, but no one's going to go talking about this. I think he was getting a lot of yellow cards too. So that red card really was that might be a bit of a nail in a coffin in that, he's a young player and he doesn't have the experience to control himself in those moments. He plays with passion, right? And I think that's going to serve him well long-term, but in his rookie season, it makes sense for them to be more careful with him. He's already gotten more looks than Jack Mayer did in his first half of the first season. So I'm not complaining at this point. I did complain about Mayer a lot, but I think I'm starting to realize that maybe this is common for a rookie in MLS coming from college.
Well, and when you see, exactly. When you see what Mayer's doing now in his third season, it gives you hope exactly. It gives you hope for the slow start and the development and the acclimation.
All right. This is a long one. And unfortunately, guys, we got to try to speak as quickly as we can. I will forego my opinions on this one because I didn't do much research anyway. A really cool article came out. Free agency came out by the MLSPA today. And it's a long list of players. And Tom Bogert and someone else in MLS did an article on it listing about 6 or 8 players that they would love to see go to certain teams. Really cool article. You should look at that. You should look at the list of free agents and maybe we can all kind of put a wish list out there. That would be fun, actually. But Matt, let's start with you. I know you posted some things today. Maybe you were just commenting, but free agents for City. What are your thoughts?
So of the list, running right into it, I think it was Matt Doyle from the MLS Soccer article mentioned that Franco Escobar from LAFC is likely to. He would fit well with City and their expansion project, as he referred to it as. He's 27 years old, 28 by next year. He's making near the league maximum right now, so he would probably develop into a TAM player if he leaves LAFC. So he'd be an expensive, probably right center back, right wing back, if that's the kind of style that he'd fit into. But he's played that right side of the back line. He's an MLS Cup champion with Atlanta United, recently landed in LAFC, and has found himself behind, I believe, Hollingshead in the depth chart. So he could be one who LAFC might not want to keep hold of, especially with his high price tag and the work that they're doing on their roster. They just seem like they're spending a ton of money elsewhere on their roster. So that was the one that was highlighted in the article that City could be interested in. But I think one thing that struck me about this article, and I saw it was a post somebody made on Twitter from one of like the USMNT accounts that asked a question of what comes, like what's the process, free agency, expansion draft, like what does this mean for us, this whole thing here. And so I looked into the last few years on timeline and when we can expect this to actually take fruit. So as we're thinking through these players and who we're interested in, it's important to know that the expansion draft is going to happen before free agency really opens. So the expansion draft has historically happened anywhere from 4 days after the league, after the cup ends, the MLS Cup match, all the way to like 2 weeks after. It just depends. And the added wrinkle this year is the World Cup is going to be happening about 3 weeks or so after MLS Cup happens. So if they want to fit and start MLS free agency prior to the World Cup to get that ball rolling, then we're really looking at around the November 9th through the 20th for the expansion draft to happen. And then it is the next day that free agency opens. So we start getting lists of players made public right before the expansion draft on who's protected, who's not. And then the day of the expansion draft, we usually get a list of the actual free agents that will be available. So we can be looking to early to mid-November for this. And the other thing is this list contains those who are able to be free agents, but there are caveats in this article and in the one on The Athletic about that doesn't mean that they won't re-sign with their team.
Right.
And oftentimes this list is usually culled down quite a bit when teams want to retain their players. And they're not really restricted necessarily, but a lot of the times they're the higher, especially the younger players, like Daniel Saloy is a good example of a player on this list who we would love to have. Could be that number 10, could be that really exciting midfield option, but it's unlikely that Sporting's going to let him go. So that's the other caveat to me. Santi, you had one player in particular. I know we were talking on Twitter that you'd kind of really be interested in us signing.
Yeah. So before I talk about that player, when you were talking about the timelines, just make sure you don't make the same mistake Austin FC made last year or a couple of years ago. They drafted on the expansion draft. They drafted a free agent, Joe Corona, and then he went somewhere else. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm sure City knows all about that. So, but yeah, the one that from that list, the one that I really like is Alexander Callens from New York City FC, and he plays for the Peruvian national team, center back. And as Matt said it, one of his tweets, he will make a great pair with
Nielsen.
With Nilsson. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I think him and Nilsson will make a great pair. And when I was thinking a little bit about it, like, okay, if that's the pair, how does Yarrow come into play? But I don't know. I think I think it's gonna come down to, okay, do I want like another like world class center back, or do I plug in Yarrow? I think either way it will go well. But just having Callens, success in MLS, success internationally with his national team, I think having two internationals at center back will make a great pair for City, and kind of completes that spine that Lutz has been looking for, and he has to start adding pieces to that. So from that top 10 list, that's the one that I really like. I spent some time looking at that list, and there are some interesting players. One thing I wanted to ask you guys for thinking about goal scoring, another forward, would you prefer somebody with MLS experience and success scoring an MLS, or would you take a shot at another guy maybe from South America or a young player? What are your thoughts on that?
I would prefer, because I was thinking about several strikers on this list. I prefer someone who knows how to press or would be willing to press. I think that's like, are they a willing runner and a willing worker? I think that's more important than where they came from. And, do we want someone in MLS, even an American? Like, would we want, I don't know. Zardes probably would be willing to run, but like another player might not. And that's not something I'd want.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm trying to think of the San
maybe
Jose
on Zardes.
striker. I don't know if he would run his ass off.
Abobasi?
Abobasi, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he would. I don't know.
See, I look at this list and see so many defenders on here who are exciting and promising.
Yeah.
And we have probably 2, maybe 3 if we use a 3 center back, but really 2, the right center back and that right back. And so that's why, it was laid on a silver platter for us to look at. But Franco Escobar could make sense as a right back. It would be an expensive right back to spend TAM money on, but he would be 28 years old. He would have that experience in the kind of system that I think would work well, where a right wing back in Atlanta United's system, they push up high. And so I think that provides him the experience of what he would be asked to do for our team. And he's not an MLS veteran. Well, he is an MLS veteran, but not to the extent where he's like Alejandro Bedoya, who's 35 years old. Like, that's a player I'm just crossing off the list right now. Not just because he's going to stay in Philly, but because we wouldn't be looking to him. And so, I mean, there are a lot of defenders on this list, center backs in particular, and right backs, who are very intriguing. We're looking at Aaron Long, Alexander Callens, like Santi said, Anton Tinnerholm from NYCFC, another right back. He's a little, he's over 30 for what that's worth. But there are a handful of players. Ryan Hollingshead's on here. Ema Tuamasi, Andreo Fontas. I think there are definitely players who could fit the mold, and the options. This is telling me the options are there for really quality free agents that we're not probably going to have to pay GAM to get, or we are going to follow that same model that Lutz has looked at internationally to find good deals and players that fit the system and aren't valued where they are, cheaper options, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
you guys have landed on like the 2 that I think the most about. I have other worries for different reasons, but I think so much about whether we want another, like you said, Santi, world-class center back when we've got Josh Yarrow and Hebert and a couple promising academy players that I'd hate to see not get the chance. But, it wouldn't hurt us. It would, like, are we building to compete in MLS? Are we building to win MLS? Are we building to go to CCL and win it? You know what I mean? If we're building to go to CCL and win it, I want Collins. I want him every day of the week, right? But I think about that, but I also think about our right back style. I would say we're most shallow in our entire team at right back, and we don't look for right backs like if Ezra was right-footed. For some reason, we don't have a bombing forward right back. So it does make sense that is it Escobar at LAFC really fits the mold for the way we've been using our right backs at City 2. And so that would make sense. I've always been one that wants Mark Segbers to land at City next year and get a chance as an attacking wing back. And he'd really kill it. I think he'd be like an Ezra Armstrong on steroids, but I'm not sure that's going to happen because of the types of right backs we've had. But we could use another right back. We could pull one in the next couple of weeks, and I'd be pretty happy about it. You know what I mean?
Right back's an interesting position to me, just because of how we've seen it used in City 2, where Ben DeRosa often doesn't push as high up as our left side. Yeah. And I've mentioned this a lot about how
Akil Watts does the same thing. Yeah,
right. We have this weird shift that occurs often to our left side, and we know that Pedro, from what we've seen, can play that style. He does like to push up in a lot of the video that we've seen, so you can see that kind of style being played for City next year. So in that regard, do we need a right back that can push up high and act like a wing back, or do we need more of a right center back who can kind of hold a little deeper, maybe shift over as you need to, where he looks on the field like he's playing in that right center back role?
And when we got Pedro, last thing I'll say is that Lutz said it's hard to nail down that left-footed wide attacking player or two-way player, something like that. And so it sounds to me like he's not at all worried about right backs. Like, he can find right backs a dime a dozen, but nailing down someone like Pedro that plays your style with a left foot that can cross it in, someone like Ezra, someone like Kwame. You know what I mean? Like we've really piled up some left-footed players and left-sided players if you include Akil Watts. So, that's not an accident, I don't think, as far as the way Lutz's head thinks on building a team. So.
Well, to that point you just made about how right backs are a dime a dozen type of because of what you're looking at them to do in this. To me, if that's the mindset that we think that Lutz is probably using to construct this roster, you can cross off just about every single right back on this list because they're expensive. Like they're veteran. They're on a top 10 list for a reason. Most of them are making near league maximum. Some of them are already making TAM amount. Some are pushing DP status like Aaron Long. I know he's a center back, but I think Tinnerholm in particular is a right back who is going to be a TAM player. And if he doesn't leave NYCFC, he's going to garner near DP money. So to me, if that's, and that makes a lot of sense, Phil, that's a really good way to look at it. I kind of then look to this list of saying, okay, right backs, we're crossing them off. Where would we want to get that MLS experience like Santi was talking about? And it could be in that attacking mid position, who I had thought really Ostrak was going to try to fill that role. But if we're now thinking because he's listed on the roster as a winger, then that is a perfect spot. Not necessarily a number 10. I'm still not sold that we have a true number 10 need on this roster. But as that center attacking mid, and we know that Leuven's going to be that number 6 type, central mid, holding mid type of player, the box to box. That is and I really wish Daniel Saloy could fill that role if SKC lets him go. But that position to me is going to be very closely watched when we go into the expansion draft and when we start looking through all these free agents.
Yeah, one attacking midfielder from that list that I like is Latif Blessing from LAFC. But one thing I wanted to mention, we missed this on Alexander Callens. He has a green card, so I think that's gonna come into play when Lutz and the team are looking for free agents. And when I look at the list, and I'm gonna tell you some of the players that when I look at the list caught my attention. So Brandon Vasquez, center forward from Cincinnati FC, but he'll probably stay with Cincinnati FC or they will sell him to go overseas. So Latif Blessing, Memo Rodriguez from Houston Dynamo, left midfielder. Joao Moutinho, left back. So now thinking about left backs, probably all of these are kind of out of the list. One that I really like, but when Matt made the comments about having Pedro, one that I really like is Jimmy Medranda. He plays for Seattle Sounders, and he could play as a left back or as a left winger. And he also has a green card, and he's 28, so could be another option. Another player I like is Tommy Thompson from San Jose. He's a right back.
Haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah. But one thing I was gonna say, we can put any names we like on this list, but I wouldn't be surprised if the players we end up bringing is players that are on this list but are not that well known and are not like the biggest stars. And as Matt was alluding to, some of these players will be in that TAM territory. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the players that we bring are not some of the players that we have talked about.
And that's the other side to this too. And Matt, you were just about to kind of get to this point, but they're expensive, but they're also free agents, probably for a reason, because those teams probably feel like they can bring someone in for less and still replace them, maybe on the same level or close to it. So you got to be careful with these.
And that kind of is a parallel to what Santi was saying about the green card, because if a player needed to fill an international slot, we would probably at that point be needing to trade for an international slot.
Yeah.
And the market for an international slot, depending on the team and the need and who else is involved, like another player or another draft pick, it's been going anywhere from 175,000 in GAM to 250,000 in GAM. So a straight international slot by itself went to Charlotte, bought 2 for 500,000 in GAM, and I think it was Atlanta United bought one for 175,000, but there were add-ons. There was like a draft picks included in that. So it's not cheap. in the MLS monopoly money world to, even though we're getting extra GAM for being an expansion team, like an extra $1 million or so, spending that wisely. And we harped on Charlotte for, are they spending it wisely?
Yeah.
I would argue that they might be spending it wisely. They're not having the worst season in the world. They're fighting for playoff contention, to their credit. But I don't necessarily want us to be in that position. And I'm confident that we won't, because of the market savviness that Lutz and group have proven themselves on the international market. We know that they are familiar with, and know Hackworth is very familiar with, MLS roster rules. And they're going, I have all the confidence in the world they're going to be smart in targeting players like maybe a Collins, who they don't need to use an international slot. So they're saving $250,000 in GAM right there, to where they may be okay spending $1 million and putting him on a TAM deal to bring him in. So that a lot of that plays into it.
This is one thing where I do feel like there's been a plan all along. And I think the plan has been, we've said it over and over, because we get these Twitter complaints like, what's with all the foreigners? When are we going to start signing Americans? That's because now's the time to sign international players. It's, you bring them in early, you get them acclimated. We're even playing them on our 2 team. We're going to that extent, and then we're going to go buck wild very shortly on all American players or players with green cards. And I do think we're going to go crazy with that. I'm not too worried about going crazy like Charlotte did. I hope we don't. It was something that bothered me. It is paying off. Like you said, Matt, I respect it more now. But I'm just one of those guys where I look the other way with these stupid MLS rules, because the better this league gets, the better our American players are, the better the floor is for our national team, which is, the ultimate goal in a lot of ways is to kind of get the USMNT to a world-class level. And I want that to happen. I want MLS to play its part in that. And I want City to play its part in that as well. I want some high-class American players coming out of this city and playing for our national team and taking us to a World Cup someday before I die. That'd be really nice to see. So.
Yeah, I think the fire hose, to your point of we have to wait until the MLS season is over to sign the domestic players. The fire hose is going to open for City in November.
Yeah.
So circle that entire month on your calendar. That is when our domestic players are going to start being signed. As soon as MLS Cup is over, be on the lookout for our roster to start filling up very quickly. And we only have 1 international slot left to use unless we start trading for some. And Mario on Twitter, I think, had some really good points that, I don't necessarily oppose anything related to where we're signing the players from, but I do want us to be smart about our roster rules and how we're taking advantage of things that are available to us. And we do have a young DP that can be signed. And if that player is, for instance, from South America, then they'll occupy an international slot. And so that could be number 8. So if we were to sign a third designated player, and we don't want to pay a $150,000 GAM penalty for having a third DP, then they have to be under 25 years old. And so that type of a player historically in MLS would you see that pipeline from Argentina, from the South American countries that would make sense for us to use if they fit our system. And so that's one thing beyond the free agent list that I really hope we still take advantage of, because there's still that other international slot and we could still buy some more.
Expect it. Santiago, any last thoughts before we go?
No, I don't have anything else.
Wonderful. Well, I've been out of wine for a little while, so I'm going to go take whatever's left of the bottle downstairs. We could have gone on this one for another hour, I'm sure of it. So
this
maybe like
one.
a flyover footy after dark. We have several more of these, and we stop caring about how long we talk, and we just make it, voluntary. Sign in and talk with us. That'd be a lot of fun. So maybe in the future we'll do something like that.
Oh yeah.
For now, thanks everyone who might be listening right now. Thanks to Matt and Santiago. It's been fun, guys. Talk to you next week.